So we are live streaming to YouTube. We're just collecting more people as we go along. Today's session is all about unlocking the potential of systems approaches at a broader scale. So great. Hi. It's a workshop and we'll be working here on this mirror board. So I'm going to share that for the online participants. Yeah, you feel free. And great. So my name's Joss Colchester. And I'm going to be co-hosting today with my colleague Manali, and we're going to be exploring what kind of changes would be needed across different areas of management and design and public sector and the social sector and academia to help unlock and realize the potential of systems approaches. And that's what we're working on. As mentioned, myself and Manali are from the SI London Hub, and we'll be facilitating and hosting today's session. We also have Gary and Nui joining us today. So this is actually the second in a series of sessions where we're thinking about how to develop an ecosystem for systems innovation, unlocking the potential of these ideas and working in more productive ways around applying them towards systems change. So Gary and Louis were here last time. Maybe quick words of hello from them. Gary, would you like to say a quick word of introduction and who you are?
Yeah, hi. Nice to see everybody. Yes, I'm the president for the International Society for System Sciences. And my day job, I also work for Airbus Defence and Space. I'm a lead architect there and senior expert systems engineer.
Great, a senior expert systems engineer. Just we need to fix all our problems. Good to have you joining, Gary. Louis, do you want to share?
Yeah, that's so great. We can leave it to Gary there.
Yeah.
I have the pompous title of the Secretary General of the International Federation for Systems Research, which is a peak body embracing all the systems thinkers, practitioners, consultants, and the entire lot around the globe, convening them in spaces where they can grow a shared understanding of where systems thinking, where systems as a practice is going, and what our contribution may be as we care for the future of people and planet.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Louis. So Louis is joining us from Germany and Gary here in the UK. And yeah, we're just collecting more people in person here. Just a little bit how it's going to go today. A short introduction from myself. Manali then will join to explain to us the workshop and how that's going to play out. So it's going to look a little bit like this. I will share the mirror board again for those who have not got it. So that's it there. Here it is. We're going to be working across different concentric circles to think about the current changes that need to come about, the challenges and blockers to that, and the potential and opportunities for change. Manali will explain all of that as we go along. We are looking across 4 different dimensions. Top left in the green, we're talking about academia and education, changes need to happen there. Top right, public and social sector. Bottom right in the orange is business and management, and bottom left in the yellow is for design and engineering. And that's that. We have about 80 minutes working on the board there before we wrap up. We will try to synthesize the outcomes from today's session and share that back with you within a couple of weeks. Quick icebreaker here. For those who have made it to the mirror board to get you warmed up, I am a systems thinker, but which kind, or I'm a systems thinker or a systems changer, a designer, an entrepreneur, which one would best categorize you? You see the dots are here, and you can drag it to whichever one you believe is best representative of you. I'm sure you're many, but maybe we just try to stick to one main area. Yeah, we'll just take 1 minute for that. And I'll drop the mirror board link in again. Okay. Okay, we've got some systems thinkers, changes, designers, systems entrepreneurs, connectors and managers in the room. Great to have you all joining. Actually, I'm going to hand it over to Manali now to explain the steps in our workshop. I'll be back shortly.
Okay.
Yep, 1 second.
Okay. Hey, welcome everyone. So yeah, today we're gonna look at this the board to kind of map this how we kind of look at this systems approach, and we're gonna have 3 quadrants. So the first through each quadrant, in each quadrant there are going to be, sorry, just a moment. So we're going to do the mapping across 4 sectors. So as you see on the outside of the circle, you have academia and education, public and social sector, business and management, and design and engineering. So these are going to be sectors which we follow for all 3, you may say 3 rounds of this mapping activity. So this mapping activity, each round, we're going to go one by one for each sector. So let's say for the first round, we start with, the first quadrant where it says what needs to change in academia. So we pick up this question and we map it across the quadrant which it's been color coded to, which is academia and education. So basically, we would look at what needs to change in academia and education, and that's where we would, that's the kind of the starting point as well, to look at, to understand the system, and then mainly and first to understand what are the different challenges that you see when you, have the view. So you can pull in each post-it across that question, and as you start pulling in a post-it, you can start mapping. So the first one.
Yeah, well, we're going to go through all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the second one, we would do all in parallel. Sorry. So you do all 4 questions, which is understanding what needs to change across all 4 sectors. So the first one, which I mentioned, was the academia. The second one is, what needs to change in the social and public sector. The third one is what needs to change in the social and public sector.
Yeah, the third one's sorry, it should be
yeah.
business. Yeah,
sorry.
It's business and management. Yeah.
The third one is what needs to change in the business and management sector. And the fourth one is what needs to change in the design and engineering sector. So these are 4 sectors. And what the main question is what needs to change across all of these individual sectors. So make sure you map it across that each section and with that particular color-coded post-it. And we'll spend about 10 minutes in mapping out the needs of each sector. And while you're doing this, maybe couple of minutes, you've come across, you've realized that you've maybe mapped all of the points that you could think of. What you could additionally do is that in the center, there's a dotting, a dot voting mechanism. So you can pick up any color-coded dot and maybe 3 for each round. You can pick up, and if there's any particular point which somebody else has mapped and you resonate, or think that that's probably quite a big one and you like to highlight it, so just drop in a dot, and we'll use this to kind of our discussion later, and also as an output when we're looking at post the mapping activity.
Yeah, so to create a sticky, you just grab the pack there and drag one down and click on it, and you can type away. And as mentioned, we're looking across the inner circle and all 4 dimensions. And yeah, feel free to jump in and post up your ideas, what needs to change across those different dimensions. We will take 10 minutes, so we'll have a bit of time to think about it and do your dot voting if you find time as we go along, or afterwards also. If you have any questions in the room, everybody clear? Yep.
From our perspective, are we trying to change something? Is it just process or?
Whatever we feel needs to change. So the question is, what are we trying to change here? The question is, what needs to change here to unlock the potential of systems approaches? So in academia, I feel that, you know, the way we're doing assessment or the way that we're compartmentalizing universities needs to change. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. Jump into it, guys. We've got 10 minutes and I'm going to put a timer on. And there we have it. If you have any questions or challenges, drop them in the chat. Otherwise, work away. we're generally just focusing on the inner circle this time. The one that says, yeah, the changes, right? We'll come to the outer ones afterwards. So we've just got 1 minute left if you want to do some voting or pass some post-its. Righty, we'll take a look at some of these. Going into, yeah, and feel free to do some dot voting whilst we're looking at these ones. And start with the academia and education. Hopefully you all got a chance to post up some ideas there. So one is changing academia and education, independent research away from big tech objectives, more room for experimentation. In each subject, discussion around relationships with other subjects. That's a great one, isn't it? Anybody want to talk about that? Who is this? Yeah, anybody want to talk about the need for connections and relationships? You're getting a vote already. I mean, yeah, it all needs to be interconnected, doesn't it? Around the student's kind of journey and learning pathway. Students and teachers need to learn about the methods of systems thinking. Indeed, each undergrad course needs a subject that teaches systems thinking basics. It should kind of all start with systems thinking, shouldn't it, from the beginning? Anybody want to talk about this one? It would create a great way to like contextualize everything that you then go and learn afterwards.
But it's very hard to mark such a subject. I think that's the bottleneck right now. It's like, is it even a real subject? How do you judge proficiency in it?
Okay. So a colleague here in the room is saying that it's very hard to mark it and assess it, and it seems very abstract, doesn't it? Yep.
If we continue to assess it in the way I think I agree that we assess at present, then yes, I don't think it's viable to assess it through the marking criteria that universities have. However, if we change the way we assess, I think it's very easy to assess it and allow for creativity in systems thinking approaches. So I think it's just what do we fix first? I think we should just change the way we assess it anyway.
But it's such a foundational,
It's not really failing with the LLMs now.
Yeah.
such a foundational thing though. It's not going to fit in any box, and you're going to have to start from early days to really build it into the kind of foundations of the whole way of teaching and learning.
Yeah.
Anybody build upon that online? Needing frameworks that allow for multiple worldviews to coexist and co-evolve. Who's anyone talk on this one? Robbie? You can unmute yourself if you're with us. Systems concepts need to make their way across science, e.g. narratives, emergence, interdependence, networks. Do you think we're making any progress on that, Louis, or how do you see it?
I would say we're going backwards these days.
Yeah.
Systems, well, it was big in systems engineering, made it into the management, made it into the business schools, just to realize that if you teach systems to young students, they come up with all kinds of inconvenient questions, even challenging the system. And who can make parents pay for it? And so they're all paddling back on these kind of things on the one hand. And then on the other hand, it's not so much the focus on the business schools, but on whatever is sort of regarded as being excellence in academia is very much going deep in one field. So publish in the already known journals and going deeper on the already known stuff, which is a scheme that incentivizes nerdiness and prohibits interdisciplinary exchange. there's no such thing as a clustering of excellence in interdisciplinary work. How could you facilitate that from the different ivory towers? So academia, when it comes to systems, is in a very bad shape.
Great, there we go. So let's stay going. Gary, anything you wanted to pick up on here in this section?
I put a few likes on some of the topics. Funding needs to be cross-disciplinary based on systemic changes. Students and teachers need to learn about the methods of systems thinking, practice-based systems approaches. I put something on there about sorting out shared foundations for education on systems and systems thinking, because I see lots and lots of different systems thinking methodologies and practices. So if you're going to teach systems thinking, what are you going to teach? Which color are you going to teach? So I think we need to get our act together there.
Great. Anybody else want to build upon that or share anything that they put up here?
Maybe I can just build in the funding piece. Hey guys, this is my first time being here, by the way. My name is Rutger. So I put the funding ticket in because I think so much of the outcomes that we see today in academia are driven ultimately by the funding. So I think the funding needs to align with systemic approaches, systems outcomes, and that will then allow researchers to be more system focused. Yeah, I think that's a big one.
Yeah, going to be interdisciplinary, isn't it? And maybe not funding that particular thing, but that connection and that working together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good example is, I didn't go to medical school, but if you go to medical school, you learn almost nothing about nutrition. And that is ridiculous if you think about it, because it's fundamental to our health. So I guess that's an example, but you get it everywhere in academia.
Great. Anybody else want to add? So...
Yeah, I do. So I'm an academic. I do a lot of research around systems thinking, and one thing that we definitely need is an understanding of the limitations of systems thinking, and that there are bias and there are elements of bias and assumptions built into systems thinking, or I should say, like, I do systems mapping, and there's a lot of issues with it that aren't surfaced, and sometimes in academia it's seen as a very good way of like looking at a system, using systems tools, looking at the challenges and opportunities, but also there are a lot of assumptions, a lot of blind spots, and there needs to be a lot of reflection in that area. So yeah, I put down like design research that surfaces these issues rather than
Great. I'm just realizing we're a bit behind time, aren't we, here, because we have the other areas to cover. So just look at these other ones. What needs to change in social and public sector? Isolated interventions. What else do we have going on here? Opportunities for public to engage with government. We need new forms of democracy that support systems, probably starting at the local level. Policies should be simulated out in tandem with each other to test the systemic effects. Yeah. What influence does this have on the actual system? We don't get great visibility into that. Again, government needs to be organized by systems, food systems, and so forth. Policies need to reflect better long-term thinking rather than short-term polarization. And funders need to fund systems, not savior organizations. Anybody want to talk about what we have up here?
New forms of democracy, because the whole concept of democracy has been designed well before we had internet and LLMs and everything. So there is a lot of things would have seemed like good idea 200 years ago, but were just not feasible from technological point of view. And nowadays there is so much that could be done, but I don't know anyone who is working on like canonical old school principles of democracy, but reinvented to new background.
Well, definitely systems thinking, doesn't it? Kind of complexity thinking. Okay, I'm going to stay going here, or yeah. Louis, did you want to add, or good?
Yes. What's the most I don't want to say surprising thing about the public sector is that there is so little awareness of their own practice. So they seem to be so rigidly incarcerated with the policies and processes and all this sort of a practice that is rather derived from the paper than in any kind of way aware of itself, in contrast to, for example, business organizations which have had in the past business total quality management and project management, all these kind of things. That is not really the awareness of the public sector, and without that awareness, it has no access neither to things like continuous improvement of itself in forms of a practice, nor to innovation, so that it always seems to come from the outside. The next policy paper or the next process that is described from the outside is supposed to bring a change or improvement or whatever, but it is all that is done to the people in the system instead of embracing the lived experience, the knowledge that is in the system, and opening pathways to grow the improvement of the public sector out of itself.
Great.
That's
Yeah.
in a nutshell.
Yeah, those are great points. Thanks, Louis. I'm going to stay moving on now for the sake of time. So looking business and management. So the board will be here afterwards for you to come back and revisit everything and see what's posted. So we're going to move through things relatively quickly. Let's take a look. Diverse hiring, more cross-departmental teams, more CRS, co-taking responsibility for public matters, thinking that what impact a business will have upstream, downstream on their competition, etc. Just saying we'll disrupt the industry is not enough. Being responsible should become the norm, and thinking broadly about the context within which what you're doing is going to exist and the effects of that over time. We need a mindset shift in the way we do business, working in partnership instead of competition. In addition to the triple bottom line, more consideration for general social values. Okay, stay on track. I'm going to jump over here, talking design and engineering. Design empathy. Anything here, Gary, you wanted to pick up on? No?
I think they're all great, actually. Yeah, design with empathy is brilliant. There's incentives of designing align with broader interests than just profit making. Designing for more than one purpose, add flexibility into the assumptions that you don't know what will be used in the future. That was nice. There's lots of really great stuff. Design around systems outcomes, the empathy, better appreciation of the environment into which the systems are delivered. The one that I put on was, because I see this all the time, leadership that is capable to deal with complexity and being accountable to do the right things at the right time. I don't think the people who are capable of dealing with complexity are in the driving seat at the moment in terms of what he's done, and that needs to change.
Also, kind of the socio-technical thing, and just better integration between different levels, the technical and non-technical across the board, like in organizations and society generally, they become disconnected. I think that's part of the promise of systems engineering and so forth, to reintegrate that. Yeah, this is when we narrow down to the technical level and we get caught up in all the technology and the engineering, we disconnect from the purpose and what it's being used for in society and how it's interfacing, and ultimately get suboptimal outcomes and doesn't really work as it could do.
Yep, very, very true.
Okay, so there it is. Our time's up and we'll move on.
Yeah, so the the first section of the mapping activity, we looked at, what needs to change across these four sectors. So for the second one, what we want to look at is, what are the challenges that we think exist for this, for this change to happen? What are the blockers that you think again come across these sectors individually? Academia, design, engineering, social public sector. So in a similar fashion of how we mapped out the changes which are needed, we want to look at, you could maybe have a very quick, again, a read through on what are the changes are mapped and see, what are the blockers and challenges that come across these sectors. So you can, we'll again, for the next 10 minutes, go across each sectors and individually map for them. So we'll give another 10 minutes for this for the second part of this. But any questions before I start the time?
Yeah, go for it. Let's start the timer. So we are looking
Yep.
across. Do you want to zoom out, just show them the four sections?
Yeah.
So again, it's that second circle there that we're working on across the four different dimensions. Yeah. Yeah, let's sit there. Okay.
Do we unmute it?
Yeah, I think we do, don't we? Yeah, any questions or challenges with that? Drop it into the chat, please. Okay, we're back. Just look across these different areas now in terms of the blockers. We can start again with academia. Ego, yeah, it can be blamed for a lot of things, right? Tribal behavior. What way does tribal behavior manifest itself in academia? Gary, do you want to say a quick word?
Well, it all comes down to well, ego is a big thing. Yeah, it is connected to that. So you have almost like, tribes who worship a particular kind of person or methodology. Um, and again, that gets in the way of collaboration. People talking different languages almost. Even within the systems field. Um, so it's definitely a block to collaboration. Yeah.
Yeah, the social dynamics also is what you're referring to, isn't it? That people
Yeah.
rather kind of flock together and you end up in silos then.
Can I build on that?
Yeah.
Well, what I've noticed, I mean, to your perspective, you actually work in academia, but when I used to work in academia, it's the emotional intelligence of people is undervalued. So you get people who are incredibly intelligent in certain areas, but less so in at least like in the fields that I was working at, in emotional intelligence. And as a result, it's more difficult to speak the same language because you almost get like stuck in certain like paradigms or in certain ways of talking. And that way you can have people who say exactly the same thing, but actually they think they say something entirely different, and they write papers and they disagree and they create a whole narrative around it why it's different. But then if you zoom out, they're actually saying exactly the same thing. So I think that starts before academia, that starts in education, which is also part of this, where I think we undervalue certain types of intelligence over other types of intelligence.
Yeah, I think you might notice it in yourself, the way when you get caught up in things intellectually, it's very easy for you to kind of get caught in details of like the names and all of this when you're actually missing another dimension that helps kind of connect it, doesn't it? And what you're saying, part of academia kind of suffers from that problem of just being too much in its head and doesn't connect with other kind of social emotional dimensions that would really help to make the connection between different disciplines and different people. Yeah. Great. Louis, anything you want to add here?
Yes, and it's repeating in the other sections as well. The evaluation and incentivizing schemes are very much roadblockers for any kind of change. It's very much you get what you pay for, you get what you reward, and as long as systems is not on the list, there is little chance that you get it, neither in academia, nor in management, nor in the public sector. And engineers may be rebels at times, but I'm not quite sure.
But go back to the blocker. What do you think is really the blocker for that, like that introduction into academia, or what has been the blockage?
Well, it's very much what I was touching on earlier. So what is it that is rewarded? For example, excellence is decomposed into writing an even more nerdy paper in a niche journal within a specific field, but not reaching out to something that is interdisciplinary. So you get more and more of the silos, which are very much the opposite idea of collaboration and a systems approach in the field.
Yeah, and really integrating it into challenges out there in society could help, couldn't it? Like outcomes in terms of how does this really help with this challenge and these people? No?
A good example is
Yeah, well, yes, to a certain extent. But again, if we go back to outcomes and output, how do we measure that, or how do we qualify it? And in the academic world, for example, it is very much papers written or papers published, to be precise. How do you trace the agency of a paper of a specific educational practice for field, we are back into the evaluation, and there it is. It's so much easier to have the single person doing a single thing that is attributed to that very person. That is something you can measure, like homework or like an exam.
Yeah.
Or so the entire system revolves around that separation of individuals which are qualified and along very simple schemes.
Expertise is highly valued in our society, isn't it?
Alleged expertise, alleged.
Yeah, I guess just to build on that, if you look at funding in healthcare, it's all about addressing symptoms. Like it's all about how can this specific medicine address this specific side effect that has been created by another medicine. And then if it's proven significant, then that's a massive result and unlocks another like millions and millions of funding to then address another side symptom of that other medicine. And that way you can, like, it's perpetually, like, it never stops. Ozempic is probably a good example of that. Like,
Yeah.
it's a good, like, very innovative, but it doesn't address the systems issue.
Yeah, so you're saying it's a lot to do with evaluation, but that doesn't exist in isolation. That comes from where we put our attention and our way of looking at the world is what we value, and the kind of frameworks for evaluation kind of fit into all of that and are shaped out of that. So yeah, it's about evaluation, but there's a lot behind that, isn't there, Louis? In terms of you've actually got to change the thinking if you want to change all that stuff, don't you?
Well, it's always the question: do we think our way into a new doing, or are we, or in a new acting, or acting we our way into a new thinking? So it is on both sides. And
Yeah.
but what's very, very helpful in terms of social ecosystems is to look at the different fields also through the lens of identifying a certain practice. What is it, and how? What is it that people do, and how do they do what they do, and what gives them the orientation to the one or the other direction? Call it purpose, call it incentive, call it whatever you like. But to really go to that granularity, it's not in a systemic perspective, not in a behavioral perspective. Then we're back to the ants, aren't we? But here it is very much to go to the verbs, go to the doing, go to the acting.
Great. Okay, let's move on, and do encourage you to use the dot voting to help us surface some great ideas here. Let's take a look at these. What are the blockers and what needs to change in social and public sector? We've got the tragedy of the commons. Anybody quickly want to talk about that? It's obviously a big elephant in the room, isn't it? Rutger?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the tragedy of the commons is a result of us not seeing that we're all interconnected.
Yeah, it's a framing, isn't that, in itself? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, yeah. But I still think it's present very much in almost everything, in almost all social goods.
Great. Anybody else want to add on that? Or erosion of freedom to protest and organize, limited funded resources and mismanagement. Democratic deficit, lack of viable choice in elections, bad or worse only. And that's a kind of systemic thing, isn't it? The systems organize itself in a way that it stays throwing up not very good desirable results, not very desirable people to elect. Very little reward incentive to work collaboratively in systems. Correlation between those seeking power over others and psychopaths. Okay. So multi-party democratic governments need a lot of discussion time to implement change. And do you want to talk about that? The kind of time horizon thing is a big challenge in all of this, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say I did a bit of research in public policy, and I would say that the way local government organizes itself is sometimes not quick enough, just because national government also decides and changes policies continuously. And I think local government's always trying to catch up with the change. And I don't think they're always given enough autonomy to do what, what they need to do to, to enact systemic change. So I think there is this massive issue around power and power dynamics between local government and national government. And other communities in, having a voice in decision making.
Yeah, it kind of goes to what Lou was saying about lack of adaptive capacity coming internally, coming from the outside. Okay, anybody else want to pick up on this?
I think there is a big problem because it's a political, like a lot of these decisions are political. So if a party in power wants to change something, that's fair. But if the party in power wants to change the whole system, that's seen like a power grab.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to say, no, it's not a power grab. We're all working on it, but we all disagree with each other, and not everyone is even in the elected government. But
yeah, democracy is almost set up to resist systems change, isn't it? In some sense,
like you can either raise the tax or lower the tax. You're not really allowed to change everything.
Yeah.
So, like you said, polycentric. So no one actually has complete power. Everybody, every organization has its own agenda. Every department has its own agenda, and you're dealing with that kind of. Am I stepping on someone's toe to change something or enact something? So, yeah, I think it's
Great.
Just maybe to add one, I think one of the biggest things that is blocking systems thinking or even like systems change in social sector is the lack of free flow of information and the quality of that information.
It's getting worse.
And it's
a lot worse.
a lot worse.
Great. We'll stay going. Some good ideas surfacing here. We're down on management and business sector. What are some of the blockers? Diverse hiring. No, we want to go out a little bit. What are some of the blockers? Missing connections. I mean, talking about information flows and so forth. And Donella Meadows says it, doesn't she? She says, missing information flows are one of the ways to drive a system crazy, I think is the word she uses. And trying to get the right people, the right information is a huge challenge we have. Stakeholder primacy. No incentives for businesses to focus on non-monetary value. Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff thinking that businesses are just for profit making without consideration of broader value flows. That's kind of a transformation that needs to come about, isn't it? Enterprises as being about value across multiple dimensions. Anybody want to add to any of these topics?
I think it's interesting that originally, like none of us, we don't have any political alignment as far as maybe some correlation in terms of our interests. But so it's like, what's coming out of this for me so far, quite shockingly, is like a new kind of authentic liberal socialism. And it's like that, I'm not surprised to see that, but at the same time, it's like this keeps coming up. Any conversations you have with any group of people nowadays who isn't vested already in the power structures will come up with the same, everyone's talking about the same things, but no one's organizing to create it on that, which is interesting.
Right.
Blockers. What's blocking us from actually doing any of these things that we've been talking about for at least half a century?
Yep.
Is it fear? Is it terror? Especially now with what's happening.
Lack of or systems knowledge building. Anna, do you want to share with us your thoughts on that? For leaders, okay.
Yes, I mean, there just really seems to be quite limited executive sponsors and business leaders that have a systems awareness or even context and have been, have had the opportunity to have that developed. And I think about rising leaders as well and the opportunities there may be to attempt to address this challenge.
Great. Great. Let's get going. I'm hoping, looking forward to some ideas around what we'll do about that in the next section. Just a couple more minutes here, looking at design and engineering. Anything you'd like to talk about here, Gary, or institutionalized prejudice, bureaucracy? I put one up actually around, how dominated design has become by design thinking and human-centered design. That's kind of led us down a certain trajectory in the design world over the past number of decades and got ever more human-centered and systems non-centered, decentered. And we need to kind of refocus that, right? And there's a lot of new interesting stuff coming out in design, but it's still there's a dominant paradigm there that focuses everything back on the users. And I guess that's a lot driven by business kind of requirements and wanting to make money and so forth. But yeah, Gary, anything you want to pick up on here?
Yeah, for me, so this follows on a little bit from where we were on the business and management, and having those capable leaders who are able to actually make the change which is needed, rather than applying short-term, simplistic approaches which fail to deal with the complexity of the situation. I think we're seeing an awful lot of that at the moment.
And I guess we've been talking about that for a long time with system thinking, haven't we? Fixes that fail and unintended consequences. And yeah, well, let's hold it for the next section, right? That's a good blocker, isn't it? Across the board, really. We talk about public sector and so forth. Great. So I think we're keeping good time. Maybe I'll hand it back to you, Manali.
No, very interesting to hear about yeah, all of the mapping. So I think in the third section of this mapping activity, we're going to look on the, you could say, positive side. We want to look at what are the opportunities across all of these sectors in context of, the changes that we've mapped and, the blockers and challenges that we saw across those changes. So coming in, connecting all of those first two phases, we want to look at what are the opportunities. So it will again same apply for all four sectors, and we go across each sector, spend 10 minutes, and map out the opportunities.
Yeah, off we go. Just to try and stay on time, let's
Yeah.
jump in and take 10 minutes. Do you want to put it up? Any questions? Put them in the chat, and we'll be back.
You're on mute, Joss.
Sorry, I was just saying, at least the people in the room heard me, right? So yeah, that's a good thing about having people here. I was saying it'd be good in our last 10 minutes to hear from some of the people who we haven't heard from, particularly online. Timmy, would you like to share anything that you came up with in this last section around, opportunities and potential?
I'm like actually a bit sorry, but this part I had the most trouble with, so I didn't really put up any notes in this part.
Well, you could do some voting if you see some good ideas. Maybe David, Lubil. We can't hear you for some reason, David. Yeah. There we go.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
For the social sector, Joss, is that what you're referring to?
Whichever area you see, potential and opportunities. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I think in general, I saw one of the themes being around things are so bad that they could become good. That's sort of, it feels to me like it's suggested in several. And then, what was one that said that an era of radical regressive change can become a potential opportunity for rethinking and realizing significant progressive change. So yeah, when there's a lot of disequilibrium, even though it's not, in my opinion, good right now, certainly where I am in the US, but around the world, that also opens up the opportunity, if we can, get to it, to change operating into systems, more than ever. But we have to seize that opportunity, and it won't be easy. And yeah, people are becoming more aware of this way of working, and that is really important because they can start to see the benefits.
Great. So let's stay going. James Freeman, would you like to add anything? Or Gloria, if you'd like to share anything. Yeah, Gloria?
Hi. Yes, I think it's an opportunity to bring other voices to the conversation.
You think that's a potential for across kind of all these areas, or?
I think so. I think it is.
Okay, great. Sonia, would you like to add anything? Or Danielle? Oh, we've got two Danielles. Danielle Young. Karen.
I came incredibly late to the conversation. I just spent the last 10 minutes zooming over all this incredible conversation, trying to absorb it all. I had an overlap with my meeting, so my commentary is being finding a lot of resonance, I think, in the conversation that's happened and unfolded, and hope that, as somebody just said in the comments, I think it'd be really cool if we had something that came after this, to be able to weave these together, because there's a lot of resonance for the work that I do here in the university in Canada. So yeah, being appreciative for all of the ideas that you all have created around this map, for sure.
Yeah, feel free to vote on ones that you find interesting, and we're going to try and use that as a way to synthesize afterwards.
Absolutely.
Great. Anna, would you like to maybe pick up on that thread before in terms of how we can help leaders, think differently?
Sure. Let me get, I actually had added a few ideas under the design and engineering portion. I see a couple of opportunities here. A linkage with academia, obviously, well, in terms of better preparing undergrads with foundational systems concepts. So as they come into the field, they've already had exposure, and then in turn, as they start to rise, that really will start to help. And equally, if we can offer micro-credentialing or opportunities for more experienced design engineers to raise their knowledge. And then coupling that with engineering firms that are more proactively themselves encouraging their staff to really gain knowledge, train practitioners, and then critically apply these practices with knowledgeable oversight on projects. And then if we can couple that with raising the awareness at the drivers of the supply chain. So I'm thinking about, the government agencies, that their policies and expectations to receive funding can start to incorporate expectations for seeing systems practices applied, as well as other, for instance, transport government agencies embedding it in their requests for proposals, et cetera.
Excellent. I think you're getting to kind of the demand side of the whole thing, aren't you? That needs to be there also to kind of incentivize, say those engineers, as you say, but also in the other areas too.
Definitely.
Thank you very much, Anna. So just in the room, the last thoughts from anyone here you want to share?
I'm kind of the first person to roll my eyes and somebody says, just use AI. But actually, I have to acknowledge that a lot of the problems we've discussed today can be addressed with AI. So for example, when we talked about different academic fields being almost different languages, you could use AI to say, like, translate these 10 papers into language I understand, like from English engineering to English chemistry. And same with democracy. Like, it's very hard to say Brexit yes or no, but if you could ask every single citizen what their opinion is, and they can just type it in, then you can use AI to synthesize 70 million of replies into like what people think. So things that weren't possible before now are becoming technologically feasible.
Yeah, but if you have the same old thinking, it'll probably create more results in some way. That as important as what you say is, I think it is. But yeah, should we stay going? Any other thoughts?
If I may.
Go for it, Louis.
Yes. If we think systems, it always comes with two major promises. One is wholeness, and the other is agency. And especially or they go hand in hand. And from the perspective of the bigger picture, there's so many synergies, so many positive, potentially positive collaborations or connections that we leave untapped. That is, for my understanding, the greatest resource that we have in the systems thinking. Plus, and that is a moment to express my gratitude for what you're doing in the Systems Innovation Network, holding spaces for that kind of a reflection, to keep thinking or keep asking ourselves, what is the bigger picture? How do things within that bigger picture connect? And how does that knowledge increase or opens new realms in terms of our own agency, individual agency, but more so collective agency? And that is what I still find so fascinating about all the things that we're doing here together. So thank you very much.
Excellent. A great note. Gary, would you like to add any last thoughts before we draw to a close? We've got a sticky down there that systems engineers are going to save us all. Maybe you're just, I'll just reiterate that, says Gary.
No, I saw that, and I thought I very much appreciate that. I don't think that is going to actually solve the problem, though. I think we can contribute, but we need to work on all of these areas. I think it's great, Joss, that you pick these 4 different dimensions to get that multi-dimensional view, because you can't just solve any one little bit of this. You have to actually apply a systems approach across the whole. I think the contributions have been great and amazing. I just like to reiterate what I put into the chat. I think it would be great to build a systems map of all of this stuff and look at the connections across these 4 different dimensions, and also how can we use the opportunities to address the blockers, and try and find a way of reinforcing those positive pathways that we need. Yeah, I would really like to take this forward into the ISSS conference in July. So let's work together on perhaps building that map. Thanks a lot. It's been wonderful. Thanks for all the contributions.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Louis. Thanks to everyone. As mentioned, we will try and synthesize this up and create some kind of a map. And we have your contacts from signing up on the event, so we'll share that back with you via email. Much appreciated all your contribution, people in person here and people online. Maybe I'll just pass it to Manali to wrap up.
Yeah, thank you again, everyone. I think, yeah, quite an interesting one to see all of the thoughts. But at the same time, would love to hear, how your experience was in today's session. How would you rate it from a scale from 0 to 10 in terms of engagement or in terms of relevance to what you when you looked at the event and how you found it? Also, at the same time, if you have any ideas in terms of how we might improve these events or anything other in terms of the other kind of events or collaboration that you're looking for, it'd be great. We are looking how we can probably take these forward, looking at launching the systems approach as well. But yeah, so it'd be great to hear from you.
Yep, but in the stickies below, also any comments or feedback, or just stop vote there, and that would be much appreciated, and look forward to seeing you in future sessions.